And you're live.
Okay, Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, House Education. We are very fortunate this afternoon to have several young people who would like to speak to us about the future of education in Vermont, and particularly H454 first, and then a little bit more talking about H54, which is our phone-free schools bill. We'll start off with some testimony on H454. And I think we are beginning with Isla. Come join us up front, and welcome to the House Education Committee.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah, well, thanks for wanting to speak to us. This is great.
Okay, so
Need you to introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
okay, my name is Isla Siegel, and I'm from Woodstock. I go to middle school in Woodstock. I'm in 8th grade. One of the things I really like about my school is I think the size is really nice. And this is something that 454 talks about a lot, is like class size. I have about 60 kids in my grade. I think that I think that you could increase the class size a lot or decrease it by a little bit and it would still be a nice size. But I think that it's a good size because you have people who have similar interests to you. You have people who play the same sports that you do or do the same stuff that you do. But you also have people who you might not share interests with, but still have to spend a lot of time with. And you learn to compromise well and get along with people. But I think that if you go to a really small school, and I have a lot of friends who go to small schools, and you can't get away from people, and it leads to no compromises, and you just end up ignoring things. So I think that having a bigger class socially is really nice. So I think that that's one thing that stands out to me as nice about our school that 454 also talks about. I think, so I was also asked what I hope education looks like in the future. I want the future of education in Vermont to involve outdoor learning and nature a lot. Because I think that Vermont is a really beautiful state, and it's important that as Vermonters we appreciate that and learn about it, because we're given this opportunity of a lot of nature and we can very easily access it. So I think it's important that we do. I also think that our generation is being handed this existential threat of climate change, and it's important that we appreciate nature and appreciate the earth that we're trying to save, to encourage us to work hard to fight climate change, because climate change is something I'm not interested in. So I think that I want schools to work to include more nature and outdoor learning. I also hope that schools can continue to have a wide range of classes. I want to be able to take classes like advanced calculus and advanced sciences, but I also want to be able to take advanced arts. And I think that it's important to try to make it so that budgets can pay for a wide variety of classes instead of having to fight to say this is the most important thing that our students should have, because I think that sacrifices stuff and leads to less well-rounded students and graduates. And I think it's important that graduating from schools, we have like people who are interested in a lot of different things and are able to be interested in those things. So those are my hopes for the future of education in Vermont. I also have a couple specific thoughts on 454. I haven't read the whole thing, but I looked at parts of it. So I understand the motivation for consolidating schools, and there are definitely benefits of it. I think my biggest concern with that is, as we close smaller schools, students who live in those areas that are rural will end up being bused for a really long time or driving a really long time to get to school. And that makes it even harder for them to participate in extracurriculars if their parents can't pick them up from school because it's so far away and they have to be at work, then the kid might not be able to play sports or do theater. And I think that that is really unfortunate. And then also just being able to get home quickly or relatively quickly is important. And like, if kids are spending an hour or even half an hour on a bus, that's like, that leads to, I don't know, I just think that that is not a good environment. So I understand shutting down smaller schools, and I think there are a lot of things that make sense about it, especially trying to conserve money. I think that that is just something that you should consider, is those students who will have to have really long commutes when their schools get shut down. And then the other thing is about 454 that I think would be positive is it mentions adopting a district-wide curriculum. So in my school district, we have several elementary schools and they all merge in middle school. And so that was last year for me in 7th grade. And when I got to 7th grade, there were students from one of the schools that their teacher had chosen to teach them a different math curriculum that was more accelerated. And so we all got to 7th grade and these students were given the opportunity to test into a higher math class in 7th grade. And now they continue to be on a higher track from the rest of us. And no one had even told the rest of us that that was going to be an option, let alone prepared us for a higher math class. And so these kids are my friends and I really like them, but I was really frustrated with the idea that they were able to take a higher math class than I was. And so I think that having a district-wide curriculum would mean that there would be more equal opportunities. I think that in a district-wide curriculum, I hope that it's the case that the curriculum goes more towards the kind of accelerated education that those students got than the less accelerated one that I got. I think that it should be the case that we're growing and not holding students back. So that is what I have to say about 454. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was great, really
Yeah,
really
thoughtful.
Thank
There's,
you.
there's gonna be a vice chair position open on our campus. Representative Hunter.
Do you ride the bus
I do not.
ever?
Sometimes, very rarely though.
Okay, even when you were in elementary school?
When I was in 5th grade, I would walk with my siblings to school and
Oh,
then
okay.
ride the bus from their school to my school.
Okay,
But I don't usually.
but not a
now.
long time, even if you're
No,
on it now?
the longest I have basically ever ridden the bus is like 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, I think you said there were 60 kids in your class, so that means 60 8th graders,
Something similar.
roughly.
Yeah,
When you're sitting in a classroom getting a lesson from a teacher, how many kids are in the classroom?
it's somewhere around 20. I'm not sure exactly. I think something like that. Yeah.
Great.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the outdoor education opportunities that you had? You mentioned outdoor education as being important.
Yeah, so in my district, one of the schools we have is a 5th and 6th grade school. And those are the only 2 grades that are there. And that school especially focuses on the outdoors because they have really nice access to this forest. And while we were there, we had like maple sugaring, and so everyone participated in that. And there's an outdoor classroom that I think they've been restoring. And there is we would go outside a lot and do like journaling outside. And we would do a lot of hiking and that kind of thing outside. There were some traditions that involved going outside, like when we go from 6th grade to 7th grade, we would hike from that school to our middle school, high school. And there was just great infrastructure there for, like I said, there was like a maple syrup. There were like everything that really encouraged us to get outside and allowed us to get outside super easily.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Uh, So in here, are we shifting gears to 54? Is that, okay, great.
I have a little to talk about what she said.
That's okay. You can combine the two. So Braden, you're up next. Again, if you would introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
My name is Braden Shern Burns. I'm from Montpelier Middle School, right down the road from here. And I'm mostly here to talk about H54, but some things that I'll said, like the bus thing, especially. Like this morning, we were just looking because we were trying to figure out how far away my house was from the state house to see if I could like bike here in the morning or something and how long it'd take to walk. Said 55 minutes, but it's only 1.6 miles away. And the bus for me to get home, I usually get home around 3:35 and school gets out at 3. And that's a 1.5 mile drive. And we're connected with Roxbury as well. And that's obviously a lot more. So many of them have to ride the bus for like an hour and a half every morning and get up at like 5:30. I know a lot of my friends do that. So, I mean, I know that's tough, but like, it's also saving money for the schools. So I get why, but I think like there might be better ways, especially for like Roxbury, because they could join with the Randolph or Northfield, and that's a lot closer. But that's basically it about H454. If you have any other question, I'd be happy to answer them about that, but. So,
Quick question.
Yeah.
How many, when you're sitting in a classroom, how many kids are in there?
I think in the last kindergarten through 8th grade, it's usually been between at least like 18 to 25 probably. And sometimes we've even had like 2 teachers in the class, like
right.
main teacher, helping teacher. So usually like 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 in between that. Yeah, so that's basically the system at Montpelier so far. I don't know about the high school, but I think it's fairly similar.
And you've been in the district a while, you went to Union first?
Yeah, kindergarten and then all the way.
Looking forward to the high school?
Yeah. But about my school with the current cell phone practice, because in our school, we aren't allowed to use our cell phones and we aren't allowed to have, or we are allowed to have them in our locker, like bag, or even our pockets if we want, as long as they're like not distracting. If the teacher sees anyone on their phones, then they can take the phones away, and they have like a holder in the main office that they put the phones in, and they give them back to us at the end of the day. And during some like standardized tests, like it used to be called SBAC, but now it's called VTCAP. And don't know why they changed the name.
Don't change it.
long-
Don't worry, they'll change it again.
It's a different provider.
Yeah,
different company.
we have our phones, smartwatches, even headphones taken away for that because we can't like use them just in any like way during that test, which like I think is totally fair because like they don't want us cheating on the test. But we get them back after class. I think in the high school, that's sometimes also the way it works. Like they can put them in a basket and then get them back after class.
Can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah.
Ask you, what about during lunch, recess? Can you pull your phone out then?
During the whole day, we are not allowed to be on our phones. If we need to like say our track meet, we're scheduled to have a bus at like 2:30, but it gets moved to earlier, so like 2 o'clock. We're allowed to ask the teacher and like text our parents like with them watching, and that usually works. Sometimes the teachers are like a little suspicious, so they like make us do it really quickly.
That's what teachers get paid for.
To be suspicious.
How often do students have to, is there interaction between the teacher and the student in the classroom when they pull out their phones inappropriately and it gets taken away? How often does it happen any given day?
Oh, well, I don't know. There are some students who I've seen get taken away once a week sometimes. And then others never seen them even have a phone out. But, I mean, on average, probably, I mean, depends on the teacher. There's a lot of teachers, and there are some that are more strict than
Right.
others, and the
Okay.
students know that.
Okay.
So, depends on the class, but like, in our social studies class, probably never. I mean, I've seen people take out their phones, but usually they just put them back pretty quickly.
Right.
But then in other classes, like a lot more because they think they can get away with
Get
it.
away with it. Yeah, okay, that's helpful, thanks.
Yeah.
Braden, okay, you're in eighth grade, right?
Yeah,
Do you have any friends at this point in your life that don't have phones?
yes.
Okay.
I only got my phone in August this year.
Okay.
But yeah, I have a couple of friends who don't have phones.
Are they depressed? Kidding. I withdraw the question.
I wouldn't call it the.
We interrupted Braden from his testimony.
Yes, we did, but it was.
You wanted to-
Well, I can definitely like talk about that a little, but in the relation to school, like I also know some kids who have phones but don't bring them to school.
Yeah.
But that seems to work for them. That the main person that I know also lives like 2 minutes away, so they can run, talk to the parents, and that's pretty easy. For me, as I said earlier, 55-minute walk, not that quick. But yeah, that's basically the cell phone situation in my school. In the high school, I don't know it as well, but I think it's pretty similar, other than like the big difference that I've heard is that like you're allowed to sometimes use them in the halls. And like if there's something called like sewing block or like study hall, and you're sometimes allowed to use them during that when you're not in a class. As I said earlier, you can put your phone in a bin and like the teachers collect them, give it back to you after class is over. Don't know a ton about that, but I think they're planning to change it a little next year, so you more like the middle school where you're not even allowed to have them in the hallways. Which like I get the reason to do that. I think that sometimes it helps them like with work, but I think because we also have Chromebooks, but they're not very new. And I think 70% of the stuff on them is like restricted. It's like if I look up like, because I was trying to make a slideshow about a song for chorus class, because like you have to research it, tell who it's by. And I looked up like Zach O'Brien, because he's the artist, got restricted in 5 seconds. I had to figure out a way to take a screenshot very quickly before it got restricted. And it took like 20 tries, eventually I got it. But like not easy to get past the restrictions. I even have my phone. Eventually I just sent a picture of something to my computer email. So that was quicker than trying to get it on my Chromebook because it was restricted. But the phones can help with work. It also becomes a huge distraction now. Like I don't have social media, no like Snapchat, Instagram, or TikTok, but I know a lot of my friends who do, and a lot of them are on it too much. I have some games on my phone, but usually like I try to limit that. So like I have a screen time like limit for my games. Technically I can change it, but it's like done for the day. And then I usually like put it away. On the weekdays, that's usually like 30 minutes or something. On the weekends, it's more, but on the weekends a lot of times I have like soccer games or track meets, so I don't use it as much. But I think that that's a big reason why they're getting rid of them in like the hallways, because they can definitely be a distraction. Like people try to keep up like their streak on Snapchat or something by like showing a photo and get like totally distracted from what they're supposed to be doing, which is like homework or like something for a class that they have. I think they shouldn't completely ban them in schools though, because like as I said earlier, if you keep it in your bag and it's not being a distraction, and like you need to text your parents about like a change of plans, I think it wouldn't be very like good if you didn't have it with you, cause then you'd have to use like the old handheld phone. Oh, no. I have to remember what number, it's like 1-0 whatever the number.
For your phone, you can email.
Yes. I you stuff you can't email outside of school. In mine you can, in mine you can.
Okay.
But home texter or something, um I I don't get my email very often. I guess I'm updated and doing more, but usually in school I know friends who have over 2,700 emails that they have to check. Yeah, they got it from the very day of the email, the first email, or first day of the third. Then do the thing.
You think the most important, you think what's going on with your school board?
I think I would say that it works for most kids. I think for some kids, obviously they get taken away. But when you get taken away, you get back at the end of the day. A lot of kids are like a little frustrated that they don't get back at the end of the day. Sometimes you can set that in, so I don't know where it is, but like another thing. When I had kids, I was paid, I missed a couple of days. I had to get my phone to down about that thing. Didn't know where and to the end, like, oh, where did you put my phone? She's like, oh, it's in the office. Sorry. So I didn't get back to the end of the day. That was fine for me. I know some kids who don't love this work, like way of doing it, but I think it's a pretty good system. It works for us. Also, we don't really have all the experience where you get like you work for all not good at it's like people not the academic you know, there's so much stuff, but there's enough time to use it in the day. But I don't really dislike it. I think it works. For kids, no. You have to do all our own stuff. Yeah, that's right. We have to do all our own school, then we have like the bills we write about, then we have the things we write about, and people from Washington and out. Um, yeah, we can use that. We don't usually use it that much. But I'm just if I want to, at the table downstairs. But usually we don't use them too much. But yeah, we're allowed. But I don't think any of us are sort of
You mentioned earlier about different teachers having different interpretations of the rule. What do you think would be the most optimal rule? Is it better to have it where teachers get to interpret it in their own classroom with their own style, or would it be better to have a single, simple policy that says you can't hear
I think that if you had like a simple policy, it would definitely enforce like the same rules across the whole school. But I think in our school, I think technically it's the same rules. The teachers just like don't, yeah, they don't all follow it as well as others. I think in some classes also it's a bigger class, so it's harder to see.
Yeah, okay.
But I think it works pretty well. I think we have the same rule, so I think the same rule would work. But I also think like the teachers kind of like are lenient a little. Like if a kid is seen on their phone for the first time the whole year in like January, they might not take it away.
Mhm.
But if a kid who takes it out every week, like they would take it away, I think, pretty quickly.
Right.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would just say that if you are having trouble researching something, old man Hunter and I would say, go down to the library and crack open the Encyclopedia Britannica. And you'll find what you're
Only
looking
those
for.
that
He doesn't know
word
this.
that you pulled out
For
of
me,
the
it'd be
card.
hard.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Libraries have gotten rid of that, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you. For like pleasure reading and literature, but.
Atticus, you're up.
Not physical.
Your name is Atticus?
Yeah.
That's my son's name.
Hey, is that your son?
To kill a mockingbird.
There you go.
Okay, so
Testifying.
my name's Atticus Lawler and I'm an 8th grader at U32 and I live in East Montpelier. So basically, the way that the cell phone rules at our school work, it's different for the middle and high school. For the middle school, you can like not have them at all during the school day. You can have them like when you get there. Our school doesn't start until like 8, but like a lot of kids get there at like 7:30. So a lot of kids, like most kids are on their phones from like 7:30 to 8 in the middle school. And then like at the end, they can have them once the school day ends. But the high school, it's different. They can, I'm pretty sure, I'm like mostly sure that you can have them anytime except when you're in the classroom. So yeah, I think that's a good system for the like cell phones at our school. I know that I don't know. I kind of disagree that like we need a full ban on cell phones. I don't know if the banning the cell phones would be the best thing to do. So I feel like I know a lot of students who like are on the phone on their phones throughout the school day, and they're not supposed to be, but like they still get away with it. Like I know a decent amount of kids who do it, and like the teachers try their best, but like it's like kids would like hold them behind their Chromebooks, so like yeah. You can't, you couldn't.
Yeah, you
be
can
able to-
barely tell that there's a phone behind that book. See,
Okay, when you say that middle schoolers aren't allowed to have them, they can have them on their person.
Yeah, sorry.
They just can't have them out.
Correct, yeah, they can, yeah, people keep them in their pockets, and like bags, lockers. Yeah, I actually have never gotten my phone taken away from me, so I don't really know what the policy is. I'm pretty sure there's like these 3 strikes that like, the first strike you told to put it away, second strike gets taken away for the day, and then third strike, call home and take it away. Also, I think that like the cell phones taking pictures of like there's been like these books that have stayed in the classroom that I've needed to like take photos for to learn at home. To like learn and read those at my house when I can't take the book home. And the cameras on our Chromebooks are really bad, and like you can't take photos with them. So like not being able to take a photo, yeah.
You mean you would take pictures of the text?
Yeah.
Oh.
And so doing that with your phone would be able to be helpful.
Are you allowed to take your school issued Chromebooks home with you?
Yeah.
Okay,
You are. But the text would be like,
just curious, because I know at the school where I taught, the Chromebooks were not allowed to leave the building, so.
yeah, most
Yeah, so just curious.
kids take their Chromebooks. You could leave them at school,
But
but
you're allowed to take it.
You're allowed to,
You don't do
yeah.
your work at home. Thank you.
also I'm in the newspaper club at my school. And so we got permission to use our phones we use this like app to like record these interviews that we use. It's really bad on our computers, and we use them on our phones. And I think banning phones would take away from that, like those like learning experiences, I guess.
Or they'd have to supply you with something else?
Yeah, which I don't think would be that efficient. I think just letting us use our phones would be better. So I also think that like students would probably try and find a way to like keep them on them, like knowing middle schoolers that like, I think even now as they're banned, they wouldn't be able to like
I don't know, I think that they're still trying to find a way. And also, a lot of what Braden was saying about like the teachers that like in the classroom, like some of the classrooms are like bigger than others, and like we have these things called like callbacks. They're basically study halls, but we can go into the auditorium for them, and like there's only one teacher in there, so like they cannot see like what we're doing. And I know they had tried to like keep us all in one area, but like still kids would like go to the corners and like the teacher wouldn't be able to see what we were doing. So that's kind of all I've got, but okay.
You got lots of questions is what you have.
Yeah.
Representative McCann.
I'm wondering, how do you think about that progression? You said it was different in middle school than it was in high school. I'm wondering, like, do the middle schoolers feel like it's gonna be a bit of a privilege for those rules to change as you go from middle school to high school? Is it like, do you feel like it's unfair that there are differences between the two?
I think that
Because we're all in the same building, right, together.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering your perspective on the fact that there are two separate rules for middle school and high school.
I think the middle school and high school rules should be different. I like the way that they're now. So like students I don't know, that students won't get used to having their phones. And I think it's like a privilege that you earn in high school. And about for like the change, if they're like, yeah, I think that like most students wouldn't really care that much. And the other part of the students would already be on their phones. So like they wouldn't have that much of a difference, I don't think. But I think it is a big privilege to like have that. And I think the teachers do know that.
Representative Long.
Thanks. We've heard some testimony over time that even a cell phone sitting beside you or a cell phone in your pocket is a distraction. What do you think about that? Do you think having a cell phone in your pocket, even if you don't touch it, having it there or sitting it, behind you turned upside down, is that a distraction, do you think?
For me, it's not. I can just kind of block it out. But I think for other students, I think they would say that it's not a distraction, but it really is. And I think that they would be like, partially like if they would be studying and it's right beside them, they'd be like constantly looking at it, like trying to see if anything pops up or anything. Social media or Snapchat or anything like that.
What do you use your phone for most?
I don't use my phone that much, but I think like texting, have some games on it, but taking photos and texting, which I think mostly my main use of my phone.
Thank you very much. I
Yeah.
appreciate you thinking about this and providing some comments for us.
Thank you.
Were you gonna return to Pleasant?
Yeah.
All right, Ayla, you're back.
Just checking.
Hello again.
Thank you.
Okay. So I'm not gonna like go through the entire cell phone, all the rules, because it's a lot. It's pretty similar to what Braden and Atticus said. In middle school, you're not supposed to have your phone out between 8 o'clock when school starts and 2:55 when it gets there. And in high school, you are not supposed to have it during class, and you can have it during passing time. And then the consequences, the teacher takes it away and either gives it back to you at the end of class or it gets sent to the office. And I actually found this out in researching to talk to you guys. If you have multiple incidents, 2 if you're a middle schooler and 3 if you're a high schooler, you have to do social emotional learning, like, classes. I thought that was really interesting. I think that if it were accurate every time a student took their phone out, they got caught for it, that would be a lot. But considering that most of the time kids don't get their phones taken away when they're on them, it might make sense. I don't know. That was something I just learned, so that was interesting. And then someone asked last time if we thought it was fair that middle schoolers and high schoolers had different rules, and I did want to talk to that because I think that it doesn't make sense. Like, I don't think there's a huge developmental difference between an eighth grader and a ninth grader, or honestly, anywhere in middle school, to high school. And I think that by having kids be allowed to be on their phones, sometimes it just trains their brains like, oh, school is a place where I can have my phone. And I'm in middle school, but I'm in a couple classes with high schoolers, and you watch them and they're so much worse at staying off of their phones than middle schoolers are. So I think that it's just harder to avoid your phone if your brain is like, oh, but you were just on your phone and now you're not, and then you're gonna be on your phone again soon. So I actually think it doesn't make sense to have separate rules. And it's not as though you've actually like, I mean, okay, you've accomplished something by graduating eighth grade, but like.
But yeah, let's keep it in perspective.
I don't think it's like super hardcore rigorous, like you've earned a right to be on your phone. So I think we probably shouldn't have people be allowed to be on their phones at school. And I also don't think that that's exactly the question. In this case, I think a lot of people would say we shouldn't be on our phones in school. I think it's more about like enforcing that. Because like I said, especially in classes with high schoolers, you'll see kids and they're just on their phones like all the time. And they'll use them like, sometimes it's totally pointless and they're just snapping their friends or whatever. And sometimes they're like texting parents, sometimes they're like, I've seen some kids do some like Google Translate, like in French class, they'll like Google Translate words when they're like, I don't know. So I think it's like, it shouldn't, it's, the teachers, I think, feel not bad taking kids' phones away, but like they're being judged, and they kind of are, because if you're the teacher who actually will take phones away, then you get that reputation and everyone's like, oh, Mr. So-and-so, like he's the worst teacher, he'll take your phone away. And like some people, like I wouldn't really care because I'm not on my phone, so like whatever. But I think you get a reputation and you're kind of making a choice, like, would I rather have one or two kids who aren't paying attention in my class, or have like way more kids who don't even like me as a teacher and want to pay attention to what I have to say? I don't want that to be the choice that they're making, but I think it is, which is really unfortunate. And I think considering that, you say like, oh, well, should we just like take kids' phones at the beginning of the day and like put them in like one of the lock pouches, or like have them put their phones at the classroom door or whatever. And I don't know. I think most students, some students are able to just like have, like my phone is in my backpack and I don't take it out really ever. So some students are able to handle it and some students aren't, and it's hard to discriminate. 'Cause like I don't think it should be anyone's job, but I don't want to like give my phone to someone and just like have them keep it all day and get it at the end of the day. I would do it. Like I'm not gonna rebel against that. I think a lot of people are way more opposed to it than I am though, especially kids. So I don't know how I feel about that. And then I also had like with 454 a couple specific things from reading H54. I think the most interesting thing that I support about H54 is not allowing social media to be used with extracurriculars. So obviously like there's still gonna be team group chats, like you kind of like, you can't really do that much about that, I think. But I've had some experiences, so like Braden, I just got my phone pretty recently. And before that, I would have coaches, like with my track coach when we went to the like meeting for the beginning of the year, he was like, so we might change practice details during the day, like what time it ends or where it's going to be. And you're just going to need to like be able to check your phone and know about the changes. And I was like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, I don't have a phone. I can't be on the app. So I was like, I don't know. So that was kind of a frustrating experience. And I ended up actually partially getting a phone earlier, I think, because of that, because I needed to be able to like know about my practice. It was just how it had to be. So I think that that's generally positive. And I also think that the coaches I have who like communicate by email or something are more on top of it because they're like sending out, I think they're more conscious that they're like sending out a thing and they try to consolidate everything and they understand they can't go back and edit it or whatever. Whereas if you like post something on like Stack Team app or like Team Stack or whatever, you can like edit it and change stuff later and there's less pressure, which is hard as an athlete to keep up with. You're like, oh, I thought the race, like I thought we were leaving school at 2 and now we're leaving school at 1 and I never told my teacher. So I think that that's positive. And then my one other thing is I think it's important that that this applies to teachers pretty well too, because I have a lot of teachers. I think I've seen almost all of my teachers on their phone at some point. Some of them do it more than others, but they'll be like, oh, let me just like set a quick timer, like, oh, what time is it? And it's minor stuff, but I think it goes back to the like training people's brains that school is a place for phones thing. And they're like, oh, well, if Mr. So-and-so has his phone out, then like, why can't I? And he's telling me that I can't have my phone out, but then he's using his phone. And I get the idea that teachers are like, oh, well, like if the school calls and my kid is sick, but I think it might, I don't know exactly how to handle that. Maybe like the school, like your kid's school needs to like call the front office and the front office can just like call your classroom. Like we all have phones in our classrooms. So.
Representative Dogovich has a question for you.
It was interesting when you were talking about the teams and like communication through the team snap.
Yeah.
Do you know if they are, you can get the team snap on the Chromebook at school?
I haven't tried this, or yes, I have. I think that you can, and I think you can also get Stack Team app. So I think that's definitely possible. It's also one of those things where like when the school day, like you're not gonna pull out your Chromebook and check. I mean, you could, but like it's definitely, it wasn't like totally like you couldn't figure it out, but it's also like, oh, if you don't have, yeah. And then it also became the case that like my coaches wouldn't tell the parents when we left our meets or whatever. And so your parents like just wouldn't know when to pick you up when the bus got back. So that was another thing, sorry.
Thank you.
You bring up a very interesting point on that as well as your comment about coaches emailing. I just for the committee to consider as we talk about allowing certain communication tools, we also may want to just sort of generally say, and one must include or must also email for those who don't have some sort of social media. And I'm sorry to interrupt if you had anything else.
No, I think that's it.
Thank you. I know that was terrific.
Thank you all.
I'm going to close now. We have more at 3. We can take a break. But I also know that some members of the committee might want to ask you some questions about the page experience, but that's not on our agenda, so we're just gonna make that unofficial conversation.